Hello, welcome to my channel, Ailani Creations. My name is Wendy, and today we'll be making this Christmas themed Tree of Life earrings. For the frame of the earring, we'll be using 5 inches of 20 gauge half hard wire. For the tree branches, we will need 8 pieces of 28 gauge wire, each 6 inches long. We will also need another wire that goes all the way up where it wraps around the loop on top. So for that one, we need 10 inches of 28 gauge wire. We need an earring hook. For the Christmas tree, I will be using the Grinch mix. I will provide a link to the website in the descriptions. I am also using 3mm bicone crystals for the side, 15 crystals on each side, plus 1 yellow one on the top. Tools wise, we will need a nylon jaw plier, a round nose plier, a chain nose plier, and a wire cutter. And we'll also need a wire wrapping tool, an oval shaped one. We will start by straightening the 20 gauge wire with a nylon jaw plier. We want this wire to be as smooth and as straight as possible. That way it can be formed into a teardrop shaped more nicely, and also the crystals will go in more smoothly. Next, we'll create a loop at one end of the wire. Place the edge of the wire on a round nose plier and turn it all the way around, and then bending it backwards slightly. There is a total of 15 crystals on each side of the teardrop, leaving some space in the middle for the tree roots. So we will add the crystals to the wire next. Now I am adding 30 pieces of bicone crystals to the 20 gauge wire. These crystals are 3mm in size. You will notice that there is some space left after adding 30 crystals. That is intentional because again we want to leave some space for the tree roots. Next, we will create a loop at this end of the wire, making sure that this loop is as consistent in size as possible to the first loop on the other side. I have it split in the middle with 15 crystals on each side. I am placing the middle where there's no crystal on the oval shape to form it. This ensures that both sides of the wire are consistent in length and that the teardrop shape will form more symmetrically. You'll notice that once I let go of my finger, the shape doesn't hold. That's fine. We will use this jump ring in the meantime to keep it in a teardrop shape. This is temporary. We will make changes at the very end. Next, we'll add the 28 gauge wires to this bottom part where there's no crystal. Take one of the 6-inch long 28 gauge wire and wrap it around the 20 gauge wire. You want it to be about the same length on both sides, but it's okay if one side is longer than the other because the branches on the tree has different heights, so we'll use the shorter wires first, but try to keep them around the same length. We will repeat this step until we have wrapped all 9 pieces of the 28 gauge wire around this 20 gauge wire. Here I am adding the fourth 6-inch 28 gauge wire. Next, I will be adding the 10-inch 28 gauge wire. The 10-inch is the one that will be going all the way to the top. So I kind of want to add it in the middle, but technically it doesn't really matter once we twist all the wires together. Alright, so I have added on 9 of the 28 gauge wire. Here I am using the crystals to push the wires together. And next I will use the nylon jaw plier to straighten out these wires a little bit. Next we'll twist the wires to create the tree stump. I will twist 4 wires at a time. Grab the next 4 wires and twist them together. Grab the next 4 wires and twist them together. We have 6 wires left. I will just twist all 6 together. Now we will grab the first two sets of twisted wire and twist them together. And then we'll grab the next two sets of twisted wire and twist them together. This is my first time making a tree of life, so I didn't really do a good job twisting the wires together. Next time I would space it a little bit more, start higher up and then twisting the wires together, kind of like how I'm doing it here. Now I will check to see if I've twisted the wires enough. I will pull out one of the wires, which is basically one of the branches, and see if it's slanted enough. We want the wire to be facing downward so that it looks more like a tree branch and not straight across. It's also a good idea to compare it to the first tree that I've already created to see if they're around the same height. In this case, they are not, so I'm going to twist it a little bit more. Again, I'm using the Grinch bead mix for the tree. I'm placing the seed beads on a cloth so that it's easier to put it through the wire. I am adding 9 seed beads here, but you can add more or less depending on how far your wire is to the crystals. So if there's more space, you would add more beads. If there's less space, then you would take out a bead or two. Next, wrap the wire around the space between the two crystals. So I'm wrapping it around the 4th and 5th crystal. And I also wrapped it twice. I don't like to cut off my wires until the end in case if I need to make changes. Now we will add seed beads to the branch on the other side. Again, I'm adding about 9 seed beads to this side. And I will repeat the steps of wrapping the wire between the 4th and 5th crystal. Probably have noticed that there are some space between my crystals. Those spaces are for us to wrap these wires. As we wrap more and more wires, there will be less and less space. Okay, we've completed the first two branches. We'll repeat the steps by looking for the next shortest wire. We want to use the shorter wires first and save the longer ones for the top. Sometimes you have to untwist the wires a little bit for these wires to come out. You want to make sure that when you pull your wire down like this, it's pointed down at an angle and not straight forward. Otherwise, it wouldn't look like a tree. Now I'm just going to repeat and look for a wire for the other side. Now that we have a branch for both sides, we're going to twist the rest of the wire slightly. And then repeat the steps of adding seed beads to the branches. I added another 9 seed beads. Again, that's how much seed beads I need to reach the crystals. Next, I'll wrap this wire around the space between the next two crystals. Now we repeat by adding seed beads to the branch on the other side and then wrapping that wire around the 20 gauge wire. Now just keep repeating the steps until you have reached all the way to the top, until you only have 2 more wires left, the 2 longest wires left. You will add 8 branches on each side. As you go up, the number of seed beads you need will reduce because the branch length will be shorter as you approach the top. Again, just make sure that each branch you add is pointing downwards, almost like forming a V, so that it will look like a tree. We have created all of the branches with 2 longest wires left. Now I'm twisting these wires together slightly so that I can add a yellow crystal on top. If there's enough space or if you have a small star bead, you can add it here. Now we'll remove this jump ring that's on the top and thread the wires through the 2 loops instead. Now I'm straightening the 2 loops slightly so that they are flat towards each other and facing up. Now put each of these wires through each of the loops. So the right side to the right loop and the left side to the left loop. Now I will thread each wire through the loops a couple of times, pulling the loops together. This will help keep the loops together like this. And also this is a 28 gauge wire, so it's not very strong. So you'll want to thread it a couple of times. You don't want the loops to pop open. So I'm doing this with the first wire, and then I will repeat with the other wire on the back side of the loop. Now that I have threaded quite a few times, I'm going to add the jump ring. The jump ring is to connect the pendant to the airing hook. I'm going to put the wires through one more time before cutting it off. When your wires are getting hard to work with, you can always use a chain nose plier to pull on it, almost like a tweezer. We also want to pull it and tighten it more before cutting it off so there's no extra sticking out. Next, we'll work on getting rid of the rest of these extra wires as well. Here I'm using the chain nose plier to pull it down as much as possible and then cutting it off. Next, I will use the tip of the round nose plier to push the wire downward so that it's pointing in and not sticking out. I will just repeat this step until I have gotten rid of all of the extra wires. Again, making sure that you pull them in as much as possible and then cutting them off and then using the round nose plier to push it down so that it's not sticking out and won't be poking you. You see here, it's pretty smooth. I can run my finger through it without it poking me. So now we'll just repeat on the other side. And our last step is to add the airing hook. This is probably my longest tutorial so far. There were quite a few steps, so hopefully you were able to follow. And hopefully you like how your earrings turned out. Thank you so much for watching and happy holidays. I'll see you next time. Bye.